And another quick question about my St. Aug. I've got a big live oak tree on one corner of the place. Are there any techniques for forcing the St. Augustine deeper into the shade? I understand sun is king, but is there anything I might try to push the St. Augustine into some of the more shady spots? Appreciate it. Love the podcast. Thanks.
Now let's talk about this tree here, because this is one we get a lot, right? People want their lawn to grow up underneath a tree. Now, I've talked extensively about shade and grass, and the fact that there is no shade-tolerant grass, especially when it comes to warm season turf. They need warm season turf like Bermuda grass, St. Augustine grass, zoysia, the centipede, and even Bahia. And yes, I pronounce it Bahia grass on purpose. So you guys stop telling me I'm pronouncing it wrong, because I'll just keep pronouncing it wrong on purpose because it's fun for me to do that. Either way, all of those warm season turf, they need more sun. The reason is because it's just a longer season down here, and the weeds also get more time to grow, and so therefore our turf needs that more sun so it can grow. So we just have a larger sun requirement for warm season turf. That said, I do believe that St. Augustine is your best bet if you are going to go for shade. I think zoysia is also a good bet, but I think St. Augustine is good because it grows in stolons. And so what it can do is it can reach out into areas using those stolons. It can reach across and it can seek its own level, I call it. It can find areas where it can survive, and areas where it can't, it can move on or move elsewhere. And it can literally creep across the ground. That's what stolons do. That's S-T-O-L-O-N-S, stolons, for those of you that are listening. You also should look up, alternatively, another word, rhizome, R-H-I-Z-O-M-E, I believe is how you pronounce it. Rhizomes are similar to stolons, except they're a little bit under the ground, but they have a very similar effect. And zoysia grass spreads with rhizomes and stolons, as well as Bermuda does. St. Augustine only has stolons. But either way, they will creep across. So one thing you can do, Mike, is under that tree. Obviously, there's the general things that you want to do. You want to thin it out. You want to try to raise the canopy. You want to get as much sunlight under there as you can. That's number one, of course, and I'm sure you've done that. But number two, what you can do is you can get some sod or some plugs. Not sod, plugs. You can get some plugs and plant those in there, because now you have a mother plant. Maybe you plant the plugs, you watch the dappling of the sun during the day, and you look for the sunniest spots under the tree. Whatever that means. What area under that tree has the most? Now, keeping in mind that the angle of the sun changes during the year, and so what is the most sunny spot today may not be in a month, 2 months, or 3 months, but do the best you can, use your logic, and understand where the sunniest spots are under that tree, and put some plugs in there as mother plants and let them begin to spread out and see what they can do by moving outward. That's one thing I would do. Now, the second thing I would do, and I had to call Paul Castleberry, who put me directly in touch with Brad over at Greene County Fertilizer, because they've got a strategy that they used for years. And I want to tell you that this strategy is only going to work with a deciduous tree. So not palms, but we're talking about oaks, ash, maples, things like that. And this is an oak tree in this case. Is what you can do is you can try to supplement the tree's nutrients outside of the root system. So let's talk about one of the challenges, and this is a lot of the things that Brad just taught me while we were over the phone here. So I'm just going to kind of repeat some of the things. I'm always learning, and I'm always calling my different partners that I work with that I know have expertise in certain areas, because I know that they will give me the education that I can trust, that I can pass on to you guys. So this is what Brad told me. And Brad said, and he's right, that roots in the soil, they obviously compete for space with the grass. That's an obvious one. They also compete for nutrients and water, and that's an obvious one. But one that he talked about that I hadn't thought about was oxygen, and that the roots take oxygen out as well, and that oxygen is going to affect your grass and thin it out. And then another thing that he said, and this was very interesting, is that deciduous trees respirate salts. And that's part of the process of photosynthesis. And those salts can collect on the leaves. And when it rains, all of the rain that comes down through the tree washes the salts off the leaves and falls into the soil below. And those salts change the composition of the soil so that it also thins the grass out. Now, I had never thought about it that way. I always thought, leaves dropping, that the leaves that drop may change the pH or acidify it. But apparently it's the salts that are coming off during rainstorms. And of course, I'm sure that leaves that drop in general also have those salts on them. So that was something. So all of those things are working against that grass. So even though you're going to take my advice, Mike, and you're going to open up the canopy and try to find some sunny spots and maybe put some plugs in there, that same challenge is going to happen, especially if we're with St. Augustine, where the stolons are creeping across, and every couple of inches they create what's called a node. And what a node does is it sends grass blades up and it sends roots down. And then once that node tacks in, or once it feels like it's close to tacking in, or it's got some blades sent up to grab more sun, it extends out another node and it just keeps going, growing outward. But if it's hitting this soil that is oversaturated in these salts from this tree, this evil tree, because trees are the natural enemy to lawns, then I can see how that could affect the spreading of the St. Augustine, even though it's getting juice from the mother plant. That's why I like the stolons. They reach out long, but they're attached back to that mother plant. And hopefully, because it's a plug, plugs come with a built-in root system, built-in mycorrhiza, especially if you get our plugs, because they come from Jonathan, who is like a wizard of soils. So you're getting that good Jonathan Brown soil in there. That mother plant will hopefully have enough energy to help push out those stolons, but you can do some things to help. So one of the things that Brad was saying that they want to do is they want to go ahead and try to kick up the microbes in the soil underneath the tree, because that will help to oxygenate the soil. And so the way you do that is you spray Humic 12 underneath the canopy of the tree every 3 to 4 weeks at 6 to 9 ounces per thousand. I think he said 9 ounces per thousand. That's fine. He said 9 ounces per thousand. I say 6 to 9. But it's every 3 to 4 weeks, 9 ounces per thousand of the Humic 12 underneath the tree. So that's the first thing you're going to do, and that's going to help to oxygenate that soil, and hopefully the natural use of the chelating effect of the Humic 12, hopefully that will also start to correct and flush out some of those salts out of the soil as that's working. The next thing you want to do then is you want to convince the tree not to take nutrients up through its roots. And you're like, what? And this is where this is the part that sounds fun and interesting, and I hope some of you will experiment with it, especially you, Mike, because we're talking to you here. Is what Brad says to do is you get the 402 FloraGreene. Now, I've been using the 402 FloraGreene. This is all available at theloncarenut.com. You get the 402 FloraGreene, which I've been using on my palms, and I love it. I can show you the reactions that they do. Every time I put it in the root system, I get new, fresh fronds thrown up almost within 3 or 4 days every time. You can see it. It's really fun. But palms grow differently. Palms are more like a grass. So let's go back to your deciduous tree, in this case an oak or an ash or a maple. What you're going to do is you're going to take that FloraGreene at 3 ounces per gallon. That's it. 3 ounces of FloraGreene and 1 gallon of water. And you're going to soak the trunk of the tree as high as you can reach all the way down to the base. And you're going to soak it so that it's running off. Now, you're not going to saturate everything, but you definitely want it to be running off. And he says what's interesting, especially in the spring when the sap is running in the tree, if you go around the tree slow enough, by the time you get back to the other side a couple of minutes later, it will have absorbed what you sprayed, or a good portion of it. So go ahead and give it a good soak. Now, if it's a smaller tree, you don't have to soak it with the entire gallon, but if it's a larger tree, maybe you have to soak it with an entire gallon or 2. In this case, we just want you to use your intuition and just soak it so that it's running off, and it's okay to go around it a couple of times. And what that will do is it will convince the tree that it does not need nutrients from its roots, and then it will leave that nutrient in the soil. That's the basis of what we're doing. And if I'm saying this incorrectly, y'all subscribe to the podcast. I will talk to Brad again and go back, or if you guys have questions, leave them below if you're on YouTube. And we'll try to answer this more. I don't actually have a way to experiment with this because I don't have any deciduous trees here on my property, but I'm going to look for some way to try to do it. But that is and guys, this isn't like some kind of, unicorn stuff here. It is unicorn pea, but they did this in the business. The Greene County line is also based on a professional spray service called BioGreene. It's all related. It's all the same thing. So they had tested this in the professional market for many years before they ever did anything with Greene County Fir, and definitely long before they ever brought it to DIY. So this has been tested by professionals in the marketplace for many, many years, and they know it's worked. That is their tree fertility program. And you can see even John Perry, he does pine trees. He sprays them with the microgreen. He sprays right on the trunk. And the first time I saw him do that, I thought, that's weird, man. And he didn't even put that much up there. It was like it was not much. That's on a video from, I think, last year. But either way, this trunk spraying is very intriguing to me. And Mike, that's something I would like you to try if you want to try it. And you only have to do it twice a year when the sap's running. That's it. This 3 ounces per gallon spray on each tree only has to be done twice a year. You don't have to do it any more than that. So, Mike, there you go. That is how I would recommend you try getting that grass, that St. Augustine grass, that beautiful St. Aug, to creep up underneath that tree. And by the way, good luck with your new sod project there. Keep it watered, throw her down, and hope for the best.